So, without further ado, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce This is another in a series of live broadcasts enjoying the creative sounds of music and harmony. Hope you enjoy. Don't touch that dial. Keep it locked. Tuned in and turned on.
Welcome to the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro. Not just numbers, not just stats. It's about what they mean. And now, your host, the Maestro.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with your boy, the Maestro. Thank you for checking it out. You know the deal. Check out the other podcasts too. I think we have 5 podcasts now. I think I'm ranked 9th, so we're doing good. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. We'll do better next time. So let's talk about who they were until they were. As athletes look to get recruited, look to move to the next level, they often compare themselves to the mega superstars or the mega stars that came before them. And then I often hear things like this. Oh man, how could they have not recruited that guy? Didn't they know how good he was? Or how did they not recruit that girl or that woman because of this or because of that? But what we have to understand is, in a world where now we're kind of used to seeing everybody's business on Front Street, that was not always the case. And even in some cases, not everybody participated in that universe. And there were players who, if you look at the start of their career in a sport, you would be hard pressed to think that they would turn out to be the superstars and the leaders and the champions that they became. I think everyone knows the story of Michael Jordan and how he was cut from his high school basketball team. Well, we can take that even a step further. This story is public, but when Michael was going to a lot of camps and things like that, he was barely getting on the floor as a high school player. And then he made a self-determinative moment. He says, I'm going to be better. And you know about his work ethic. You know about what he brought to the table. You know how he pushed those around him. And that started happening for him really, really early in his life. Via family influence or whatever you want to call it, he took it in and he took advantage of it. And he turned that failure into positivity. So he went from being barely recognized at these camps that he was going to all of a sudden he was going back to these same camps and he was finishing as a top player in this, the top player in that, the most hustle award, the best defensive player, bringing home 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trophies at a time from these camps. So much so that the Dean Smith says, yo, Mike, stop going to these camps, because he was worried that people were all of a sudden going to start paying attention to him and that he might not have a shot to recruit or keep Michael Jordan as part of his North Carolina basketball team. Now, inside basketball or inside golf, you know how Michael Jordan loves golf. Well, he hung out with a lot of guys who played golf at North Carolina because of his teammates who hung out with these same golf athletes. And as one of the stories goes, one guy who was around the time says, what he remembered about Michael Jordan was he always wanted to come out and hang out with them. His golf game wasn't all that, but he was always willing to sit there and watch every single person play golf. And he could tell that he was learning something from that. Also, the joke goes, whenever Dean Smith was looking for his team, he knew at some point that they'd all be out on the golf course with the college golf team. And he said, just send them back in. We got to have a practice. Cool things like that tells you what he was like as a person, as he took every challenge, not as a moment to pout, not as a moment to be angry, but as a moment to make himself better and thus be able to effectively push those around him to make them better as well. Another player that you might not necessarily think of as being lightly recruited or lightly looked at was a player who came to basketball late, and that was Tim Duncan. Everybody knows his work as a volleyball player, as a soccer player, with his footwork, the handball even. On the Virgin Islands. And it was a pickup game that he played with Alonzo Mourning where I think they actually tied 5-5 or something like that. that sort of helped other people look, wait, this kid might have something here because he obviously is a quick learner. Well, that quick learner turned out to be a guy who went to a powerhouse franchise and college team, in Wake Forest, and turned himself into a player who is a Hall of Famer. So just because you might see a player now and that's who you're posting your game off of and think that's how I want people to think of me now, go look back at where they started. Look back at the ones who are in the Hall of Fame that weren't even drafted. How many in the Hall of Fame who had to start at a community college or a junior college to get a chance to play and move their game forward? Because that tells you about the determination and that they did not come to the game as a finished product. They did not come to the game as someone being highly lauded. They earned it by doing work off the court first that they brought on the court in the game, which meant even though they might not have been starting when they were put in the game, they did everything they needed to do to have an impact on the game, to earn their coach's trust, to earn their teammates' trust, and they never looked back. And that's what separates those who are mega, super, awesomely successful from those who only become people who are always begging for attention, always have the excuses, always have the reason why they're not getting their due because they're looking everywhere but in the one place you cannot hide from. And that is when you look in the mirror, you can never lie to yourself. You always know that you've done what you're supposed to do, and you know when you do not. And if you do not have that self-awareness, I'm sorry to say, but perhaps maybe competitive sports is not for you, because the truth will always be told on the court and in the field. So look at these players, look at what they're doing. Yes, admire them, but look at their history. Learn about them. Learn about what they did to become successful and apply that to your game. Apply that to your heart. Apply that to your process so you can get better and make a difference in the game the same way that these guys did. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this half. We're going to catch you on the other side.
Thank you for listening to the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro.
Want to get involved? Bring it. Drop in discord.gg/SimWorld NBA.
If you have the brain,
Join as a coach.
If you have the game,
Join as a player.
See the game, be the game. But now, back to Talk Dirty to Me with
The Maestro.
Once again, for the Soul Children's Dream section, y'all.
Let's get back to some wonderful sound.
Hello and welcome to this July 4th edition of the Talk Dirty to Me podcast. Appreciate you listening. I'm just going to say that every time because I really do. It means a lot that everybody takes their time and checks it out and gives such amazing feedback and such wonderful ideas. So today we're going to have a lot of fun as we look to the race to one. A lot of teams with 4 and 5 games left to go in their season, and it truly is going to be a sprint right now. The season always seems so long until it's not. And this is one of those cases. It's no longer a long season. You have to dig into it right now, right? You have some teams that are still fighting for a chance with a legitimate chance to get in. Some teams that are fighting for a legitimate chance to stay in. And some decisions have to be made about what type of team are you right now. But for today, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some fun stuff, like maybe the idea of where this race idea came from for me. Watching NASCAR. I know most of you all who know me know I love to listen to my sports on the radio. I like to envision the game in my mind's eye, but I will watch, and I do watch NASCAR. So one season, I believe it was the Indianapolis 500, Danica Patrick was in the lead with a couple of laps left to go. There was a big bad wreck, and it was one of those typical Ricky Bobby starts to the end. If you know anything about Ricky Bobby's character and Talladega Nights movie, then you're already ahead of the game. We have the situation where it really looks like she is going to win a NASCAR race, and more importantly, the Indianapolis 500. It would just be huge, and I was all excited. I was there for it 100%. Well, it did not happen that way. The green flag hit, and it was a mad race to one, pun intended. And she ended up I think she finished seventh. Though she did not win, it was still very much a huge moment for women in a sports field that was not necessarily paid attention to in the same way before. So that what kind of gave me the idea of what sports or career choice do you see for certain people that may or may not be fitted for it, but might have a secret talent for it? Again, all about to be fun. I definitely want some feedback on this. I want to know what you think about it, and let me know if you have a better choice. So celebrating July 4th, and hopefully everybody's able to do that, celebrating your nation's or people's freedom like June 10th and other things like that, with SimWorld Hoops being a global sport like so many other sports today. Just I really hope that this day is able to mean a lot to you and those around you, and you're able to fellowship in a really meaningful way. But let's go. So July 4th, we have the hot dog eating contest in Coney Island, the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, and Joey Chestnut, the reigning champion. But I think I got somebody who can take them. Bob from Monsters vs. Aliens. One of the greatest movies done of all time. It's right up there with Reservoir Dogs and Gone with the Wind, actually. I kid, it's not that good, sort of. But yeah, Bob, I think would out eat Joey Chestnut any day of the week. Be awesome to see anyway, just to watch him just eat everything. The table, the chairs, the signs, the TV cameras. I think it'd be cool. So yeah. What about MMA? Well, that's an easy choice to me, Wonder Woman, because she just never loses a fight, right? I think she could take anybody. My money is always going to be on her, and she never gives up. I think MMA fighter, definitely down with Wonder Woman. What about outside the sports realm? What about those gigs that you might not necessarily think about, but there are definitely some of our heroes and protagonists that have hidden talents for it, like therapists. It'd be really cool to have John Wick as a therapist, right? He would definitely keep you straight, keep you calm, make sure you didn't do anything rash, and, kept you settled down. So, and, once you left his office, you'd have an answer to your problem. What about somebody to do pedicure or manicure? Well, Batman. He's got that utility belt, all that stuff on his belt. He got some emery boards in there, some oil, maybe some scented rubbing lotion for your feetsies or your handsies or your whateversies, and make sure that you're okay and make sure that you're happy and cool and good to go. Yeah, so sit down at the table. Here comes Batman. I'm here to do your feet. It'd be awesome, right? Yeah, you see where this is going, right? How about someone to do your carpentry work? Anybody better than Thor? I'm waiting. I'll wait. No, nobody. The dude's main tool is a hammer. So, of course, Thor would be the absolute best choice for, fixing your washing machine or your window or your bathroom toilet, because he hit it with the hammer, it'd be fine. That's just the way it is. And that's kind of how my dad fixed everything, too. If it can be fixed with a hammer, he said it wasn't worth keeping. So I'm not sure what that means, but it makes sense to somebody. I love hockey. You guys know that. Big hockey fan. So I got two choices for hockey. I'm kind of torn. Either Captain Marvel. I think she would be awesome in hockey. She'll light up and kind of shoot through everybody the way she did at the end of the Avengers movie, Endgame. Or the only other person I can think of that has sort of like the traits that you want in a hockey player would be Nina from the movie Sing. I think she'd be great. And the cool thing is she would like actually sing while she was doing it, and you'd be so groovy dancing you wouldn't realize that she just knocked you over. Okay, I know it's getting too much now. I got it. Okay, well, one more. Since we started with NASCAR, let's end with NASCAR. My NASCAR driver, the person that I want behind the wheel, getting the job done, turning those laps, leaning into those turns, doing what they do, handling their business, it's got to be Jason Bourne, right? I mean, who else? Who else is going to win every single race they're going to be in other than Jason Bourne? Now, he'd be the only one who's finishing because no other car would be there. And you'd have to explain to him every time it's not Demolition Derby, but it's actually a race. But I still think that he'd finish number one and win the Cup season for the year. So hopefully have some fun with that. I know I did. Tell me what you think. What occupation do you see someone being able to handle that might have a secret talent for that no one else thought of? I definitely want to get your thoughts on that. And definitely want to get your thoughts on how do you see the rest of the season playing out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Appreciate everyone for taking the time as you always do. As always, please have a wonderful time with your family, friends, and loved ones. Stay safe and looking forward to how this season's going to kick off starting tomorrow. Or the rest of the season is going to kick off starting tomorrow, man. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm down for every single second. So everybody, stay cool, be safe, stay hydrated in a good way, and I look forward to what you're going to do for the rest of this season. Maestro, out.
I mean, I didn't realize we were starting right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for checking out the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro. Drop a tag below and give us a piece of your mind.
So, see you next time and talk dirty to me.